Most Wanted 2005 for PC was an infamously terrible port, but thanks again to the Need for Speed modding community, we can get the PC version going from this hunk of junk to making it look like this. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you all of the mods you need to get it that way. Most Wanted 2005 is not available on any digital storefront, and make sure that you don't purchase the 2012 remake by accident. So it does mean you're going to need to get your dirty little mitts on it somewhere else, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find some abandoned copies somewhere. All mods shown in this video will be linked in the description below in the order that you need to install them in. And if you're interested, I've already done this for Underground 1 and 2, and again, I'll put links for those in the description. Anyway, let's just get into it. If you can, you want to install the game and all the mods on an SSD. For my hardware, in certain areas of the game, there's up to a 20 FPS difference between a mechanical and an SSD, which for a lot of people may mean the difference between running this game at full speed or not. So use an SSD if you can. So mod number 1 is the widescreen fixes pack. This mod does a hell of a lot more than just provide widescreen. It's where you also set all of your major graphical options, including your resolution. Mod number 2 is the extra options mod. With this one, you can tailor make your gameplay experience to pretty much however you want it to be. There's a ton of different options here. You can change your camera angles, starting cache, unlock everything, and do a whole bunch of goofy stuff. But there's also a bunch of fixes in amongst these, and it's worth grabbing just for those. Mod number 3 is HD content support. This is a prerequisite for a bunch of other mods moving forward. This doesn't actually contain any HD content within itself, it just prepares your game to use other HD mods. Mod number 4 is the cornerstone of modding any of these Need for Speed games, HD Reflections. It does exactly what you think it does. This mod has reached end of life as it's now pretty much as good as it can be. Mod 5 is front-end shadows. Now your front end is essentially the main menu and your garage, and in the original PC version there were no shadows, and this mod, as you gathered, adds them back in. Another one that's now end of life because it's now as good as it can get. Mod number 6 is Xenon effects, and you should only be able to find this one over on GitHub. Now infamously, the PC version had rubbish particle effects, and this mod basically makes them look a hell of a lot better, and a bit more in line with the 360 version, which again had better particle effects. Mod number 7 is recompiled vinyls, and in my opinion this is a hugely important one. With the original PC port, those vinyl textures were at a stupidly low resolution, so no matter how much you increase your resolution, they're always going to look pixelated. So this mod is pretty much a prerequisite if you want them to look at least passable. Now you've got two different choices of resolutions. 512 in my opinion looks just fine, but if you want to go all out, you've got 1024. Mod number 8 is Z-Patch, which fixes some crashing issues and frame pacing issues. Next up is extended input. This will give you a much better control experience straight out the box, as it's providing X input support. Definitely a must-have if you're using a controller. Mod number 10 is the Unlimiter. This is a prerequisite if you want to add additional cards to your game, but it also contains a bunch of different fixes, and it's definitely worth it just for those. Most Wanted has always been played with a specific crash, and there's a few different fixes out there, but this is the newest and most up to date. Next up is 360 converted movies. The PC version movies are at a terrible 576p, whereas the 360 version are a much more acceptable 720p. You're also going to need the 4GB patch. This will give you 4 gigs of virtual memory instead of just 2, which will make the game perform a hell of a lot better. Now the last of the essential mods at least is upscaled HUD, which also upscales a whole bunch of other 2D assets, which for this game, as you can see, is definitely much needed. So as for essential mods, without using reshade or taking too many artistic liberties, that is everything. However, I can't talk about modding Most Wanted without fully covering the Xbox 360 stuff pack. Quite a few people do consider the Xbox 360 version to be the definitive version, and I do have a tendency to agree. It had much higher resolution textures, better particle effects, a higher quality soundtrack, the list goes on and on. So to be able to get the better 360 experience on PC, a bunch of people have put together the Xbox 360 stuff pack. At its core, this mod is porting over what it can from the 360 version into the PC version, which means high resolution textures, effects, a better quality soundtrack, and everything else that the 360 version did better. And what it can't port over, it's recreating with stuff like reshade. This is still technically in beta, so it's not without its issues, the first of which is a heavy performance hit. So if you're on lower end hardware, you might want to consider skipping this one. And the second main issue is that if you're on an AMD GPU, you're going to need to use a wrapper, which is a little bit technical. There are full instructions on how to do this, but if you are an AMD and you're not that technically minded, again, you might want to skip this one. For my hardware, I cannot run this mod at any kind of meaningful frame rate, which did bother me because I did want to use those upscaled textures. However, this is called a stuff pack, which means we can poach the things that we want out of it without necessarily compromising on performance. For the moment, the stuff that I'm using from this mod are the higher texture front end graphics, the next gen graphics, which is all the in-game stuff like roads and buildings, the high quality soundtrack, and the skybox effects, which is pretty much mandatory for this mod no matter how you use it. Everything else, including reshade, I'm not currently using because of preference and performance. As much as I appreciate the 360 version, I'm not a big fan of that bloom effect, or that hazy, foggy kind of look. For me, I'm trying to remove that as much as possible. So I'm not really looking to recreate the 360 look, but I still want to use the other stuff that the 360 version did better. In other words, those higher resolution textures and skybox. So now's probably a good time for a side-by-side. On the left will be a fully modded version of the game with every single part of the 360 stuff pack installed. And on the right, again, is a fully modded version, but only those 4 parts of the 360 stuff pack that I showed you earlier on. Now, if you're wondering, all of the mods we've already covered that add 360 content in are not covered with this mod, so we're not doubling up anywhere. And of course, all of the mods that I've shown you in this video are compatible with this one, as long as you install them in the correct order. The order that I've shown you these in isn't necessarily the correct order that you want to install them in. You want to install these in exactly the order that you see on screen now, and this will prevent any kind of mod clashing or replacing any of your HD textures with lower resolution ones, completely undoing all of your hard work. So yeah, install them in this order to prevent all of that stuff. All of the download links for these mods in the description below will also be in this order, so you can't mess it up. If you're looking at this list and you think something's missing, let me know in the comments below so I can verify it and add it to the right place if needed. When it comes to modding Most Wanted, they are considered to be the essential mods. But of course, we are just scratching the surface here. Most Wanted Online is absolutely amazing, as is the beta content. Not necessarily considered to be essential mods, but still definitely worth checking out. Because where you mod this game from here really comes down to personal preference, if you want to take things further at all. At some point, I do want to put out a mod guide for this one because it is quite complicated in places. You should be able to get on just fine without it for the moment, as long as you follow the install order and all of the instructions that are provided. But until then, slam me a thumbs up if you found this video helpful, and if you want to keep up to date with all of this, you know what to do. And apart from that, go play some games. Adios.